Welcome to the Diocese of Davenport Social Actions Lunch and Learn. The topic today is the season of creation. I'm Deacon Kent Ferris, the Director of Social Action. During this period of time, we'll share some resources and some updates. We'll also look for questions by way of the chat box. I had said to some of you right before hitting the record button that I do want to hear from folks as well. Lots to share, and I will begin by showing a brief video from the Laudato Si movement globally, describing what the season of creation is.
The season of creation is the annual Christian celebration to pray and respond together to the cry of creation. The ecumenical family around the world unites to listen and care for our common home, the oikos of God. The season celebration begins on 1 September, the World Day of Prayer for Care of Creation, and ends on 4 October, the feast of St. Francis of Assisi, the patron saint of ecology, beloved by so many Christian denominations. This year, we unite around the theme, Let Justice and Peace Flow.
The world humans have known, enjoyed and celebrated is changing rapidly beyond repair. Biodiversity is being lost at a rate not seen since the last mass extinction. The hope of keeping average temperature increases to 1.5 degrees Celsius is fading. The futures of young people are threatened by the cascading impacts of the loss of biodiversity and a changing climate. Industrialization, colonization, and the extraction and consumption of resources have created great wealth, unequally distributed. We are presently more aware than ever of the link between fossil fuels and violence and war.
The urgency grows, and we must make visible peace with Earth and from Earth, at the same time that justice calls us to repentance and a change of attitude and actions. Instead of despair, hope can be created if we work together as the people of God. The prophet Isaiah proclaims, "Listen carefully, I'm about to do a new thing. Now it will spring forth. Are you not aware of it? I will even put a road in the wilderness, rivers in the desert." Isaiah 43:19. By the Creator's infinite love and mercy, streams can rise in the desert. An economy of peace can be built instead of an economy of conflict.
The image that the prophet Amos uses to describe justice is that of a flooded river. It's a dynamic vision. Justice is a moving reality, like flowing water or a rushing torrent. In this passage, the earth, made barren by inequality, becomes green and full of life again. Today, the earth needs justice to flourish, just the same. As Christians, our task is to call for an integral vision of life, beginning with the conviction that everything in the world is connected and that we are interdependently connected with one another. For the future of the planet to be placed under the sign of hope, we call for laws that protect the environment, that express good politics, and for secure governance that goes beyond selfish interest and operates wisely with the future generations in mind.
We are invited to join the river of justice and peace on behalf of all creation, and to converge our individual identities of name, family, or faith community in this greater movement of justice, just like tributaries come together to form a mighty river. As the people of God, we must work together on behalf of all creation as part of that mighty river of peace and justice.
Our individual actions during the season of creation are important. We must recognize that for a mighty movement of justice, individual actions are not enough. Justice also includes paying historic debts. At a global level, nations with power and wealth have a duty to deal justly and honestly with communities that suffer from climate and ecological crises.
We invite you to use the symbol of a mighty river during your events to symbolize the unity of us, working together as the people of God for justice and peace. Through prayer, practical advocacy, and sustainable action, this 2023 season of creation can prophetically renew our ecumenical unity and care for our common home. We invite you to join the special season of creation and be part of this mighty movement for justice and peace. You can find all the information you need to participate in preparation and celebration of this season of creation on the official website. May we journey together in communion as the people of God to let justice and peace flow.
And so we begin our time in prayer. And this is the prayer for the season of creation. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Creator of all, from your communion of love, life sprung forth like a mighty river, and the whole cosmos came into being. On this earth of overflowing love, the Word was made flesh and went forth with the life-giving waters, proclaiming peace and justice for all creation. You called human beings to till and keep your garden. You placed us into right relationship with each creature, but we failed to listen to the cries of the earth and the cries of the most vulnerable. We broke with the flowing communion of love and sinned against you by not safeguarding the conditions for life. We lament the loss of our fellow species and their habitats. We grieve the loss of human cultures, along with the lives and livelihoods that have been displaced or perished. And we ache at the sight of an economy of death, war, and violence that we have inflicted on ourselves and on the earth. Open our ears to your creative, reconciling, and sustaining word that calls to us through the book of Scripture and the book of creation. Bless us once again with your life-giving waters so that the Creator Spirit may let justice and peace flow in our hearts and overflow into all creation. Open our hearts to receive the living waters of God's justice and peace, and to share it with our suffering brothers and sisters, all creatures around us, and all creation. Bless us to walk together with all people of goodwill, so that the many streams of the living waters of God's justice and peace may become a mighty river all over the earth. In the name of the one who came to proclaim good news to all creation, Jesus Christ. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. It was almost 2 years ago that the Diocese of Davenport enrolled in what is known globally as the Laudato Si Action Platform. And it was almost a year ago that we identified an action plan that the diocese would work on as part of the global Catholic community. We've lots to be joyful for and lot to celebrate based on the work that has been undertaken in the last year. We also do so mindful that we are quickly approaching a time when we will see a new bishop join us. As word recently was made known that Bishop Zinkula will be Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Dubuque. Many of the ways that we've expressed courage in developing both a plan and working on it this past year have had to do with his leadership and him modeling the type of courage that he has shown. We can trace additional advances that we've made on working on the project to a conversation that Bishop Zinkula had with 3 college students who had Zoomed with Pope Francis and then came and challenged Bishop Zinkula to commit on a path of sustainability for net zero by 2050. Part of the diocesan Laudato Si action plan is also celebrating the season of creation, and the video intro that we watched, the prayer that we prayed together, is one of many resources that are available by way of the Season of Creation website. Additionally, there is also the website Laudato Si Movement. Both of those efforts have direct support from the Vatican, as both come by way of the Dicastery for Integral Human Development at the Vatican. Additionally, in the United States, the Catholic Climate Covenant serves as a resource portal for Catholics across our country who are looking at more fully living the words of the encyclical Laudato Si. And so what I've been impressed with is the extent to which the Laudato Si movement globally and Catholic Climate Covenant nationally now have connections with each other in order to encourage the Catholic faithful to be mindful of our responsibilities for care for creation. We use a model of praying and learning and acting, and I want to share some resources with you on those 3 different areas. And I want you, whether you be women religious, lay people, or clergy, I want you to know of the resources that are available to each of us from our particular place. And at the diocese, for those that have members of the clergy that would have responsibilities for homilies or other means of prayer and worship preparation, but it can also include liturgy of the hours and praying the office. There's some resources that have been collected, and I want you to know of an incredibly valuable sub-page on the diocesan website in order to know where to go. Again, I'm going to need to quickly see which of the, okay. Do another quick share screen. If you go to the Diocese of Davenport and our website, and under offices you were to go to liturgy, you would find a listing of documents relating to peace and justice, and our colleague Deacon Frank Agnoli has listed several of these for the benefit of either individual group prayer efforts as well as liturgical considerations. The links to preaching Laudato Si by way of the Catholic Climate Covenant and other resources are listed here. This is a preaching peace and justice, and what Deacon Frank has provided it may be with those responsible for homilies and other reflections, but it is open to anybody to be able to access and to utilize. It's an incredible compilation of resources and information, and it really speaks to the extent to which the different offices here in the Chancery talk to each other and support each other in our works. There's an additional resource that we will make available to people. Again, this is a prayer resource compiled by Deacon Frank Agnoli, and the title is An Ecological Way of the Cross. This was first prayed here in the diocese about a year ago at Our Lady of Victory in Davenport. And as you look at what it might mean to celebrate the season of creation from September 1 to October 4 in your religious community, in your home, at your parish, within religious ed, an ecological way of the cross is a thoughtful response using a familiar format for praying. I would also reference a summer series of conference workshops that were by way of Zoom. In 2019, Creighton University combined with the Catholic Climate Covenant and hosted the first of 3 biennial conversations at Creighton University in Omaha. And the combination of the Jesuit institution and the Catholic Climate Covenant helping Catholics called to care for creation to have the types of opportunities to pray and also to learn. The second iteration of that conference was in 2021. Again, this time I should say, by virtue of the pandemic, was done virtually. The 2023 offering, which concluded about a week ago, was a summer-long series of free conference sessions to hear from theologians and scientists and practitioners. And again, the links to these recordings, which are now on YouTube, are accessible to anyone. On Tuesday, July 25th, I was part of a 3-person presentation. The Covenant was interested in us because of the steps that we had taken on our own Laudato Si action plan. My portion of the evening was about 20 minutes long, and it talks about what we have found as a result of having undertaken an energy audit in January of 2023. I worked from a script that helped me keep in the lanes and stay true to the time commitment, but we will provide a link to that presentation. And I want to make sure that I'm not diminishing the work that the theologian Dan DeLeo did, as well as our colleague who was a national level climate scientist in providing some sense of the matters that are happening to the created world. Thursday, or a week ago today, the conference wrapped up. At this time, the Catholic Climate Covenant gave honors to groups in 6 or 7 different sectors, and within the diocesan sector, the Diocese of San Diego was awarded the main award for efforts, and the Diocese of Davenport received honorable mention for the early steps that we've taken on developing an action plan. We will provide updates throughout and leading up to the season of creation. I was giving Esmeralda dates as we were preparing this morning, a number of parishes and groups have already informed us of their efforts at celebrating the season of creation. And we will make sure that these make their way to the calendar on our Care for Creation page, a main button on the diocesan page. But just to give you some example, on Sunday, September 3rd in the afternoon at St. Anne Parish in Long Grove, we will pray the Ecological Way of the Cross along with secular Franciscans. St. Anne Parish is a rural parish just outside of the Davenport Metro. We do so outside. It's early on in the season. St. Anne is gifted in so much as they have both a solar project as well as advanced ground source heat pumps. Two of the projects that the diocese is also aiming to complete in the upcoming years in order to get closer to net zero. Sunday, September 10th, if you live in the northeast part of the diocese, there'll be a screening of the documentary The Letter at the DeWitt Opera House Theater in DeWitt. This event is open to the general public, and we're undertaking the promotion of it with a number of different groups in addition to the diocese. St. Thomas More in Coralville has already given us some idea of some of their programming during the season. On September 14th, they will do outdoor stations after the 9 a.m. Mass as well as at 6:30. And they've already plotted out a plan to discuss the season of creation with religious ed participants on 3 occasions during the last week of the season. And then finally, on October 4th, what we know already, Father Robert Bud Grant will be speaking at St. Thomas More in Coralville. If you watch my 20 minutes, you will hear me reference the impact that Father Grant's writing and prophetic words have had on my own study, formal studies as it relates to care for creation. Also on October 4th will be the release of the Laudato Si Action Plan Mid-Project Goals. When we met with the energy audit folks, and we talked about going from 2023 to 2050, their recommendation is to establish mid-project goals, which would put us out to about 2036. It would be very easy to merely kick the can further down the road when you're talking about a 27-year project. They stress the importance of having mid-project goals, and benchmarks, whether it be at 2030 or 2035, will definitely need to be things that we take into account. There could be questions as to, well, what happens when you have a new bishop take responsibilities? This project is considered a pre-existing project. It is already past the phase of implementation, and therefore we will proceed on. Had this transition of a bishop occurred a year or a year and a half before, then it would have been merely in development stage, and then you would have to wait until the next bishop assumes responsibilities to proceed on. That's not the case for us. I've also spoken with Bishop Zinkula and said I am hopeful that this type of effort would be one that the Archdiocese would undertake as well. It would be very helpful to have neighbor bishops or neighbor dioceses working on similar projects, parallel projects, and what might we gain by doing so. If Glenn and Loxie were both here, they would remind me that what has been most remarkable amidst the work we've done in the past year, in addition to having the audit and being compelled to get pretty concrete about what we do as far as chancery operations and energy use. The other thing that they would say and remind me is that some of the most profound conversations have occurred when talking with people in the diocese about their genuine concern and care for creation. We have in our midst farmers and scientists and families and parishes and religious orders who have undertaken certain parts of caring for creation in a remarkable way. I try to approach everything I do with a sense of great humility, in knowing that there are people who have certain levels of passion and expertise in trying to connect with them and bringing them on board and having the best ideas be common property. So that's what we do. We're always amazed at who we meet and who has great passion. The request would be that as you give further thought to how you can celebrate the season of creation, please share them with us. It inspires others to do likewise. I said in my time last Tuesday night, I do not want to overstate what we are doing here with Chancery operations. It's a relatively small building. There are some energy use patterns that we can clearly modify for the betterment of creation. It is one portion of what we all need to be doing. I know that there are parishes as well as individuals that are keeping this in mind as they make significant plans for the future. And so with all of that, there is one last thing I do want to reference. When I talked about meeting people that provide information and inspire, I also want to share with you an example of where we need to be looking and not merely looking at each other, the 90,000 of us. There are some incredible opportunities that people have informed us of. And if I can figure out, I'm trying to, there is a, okay, I think I got it. Sometimes the technical back behind the scenes. If you can, what I'm intending to show you is a poster, and the description is the poster presentation. Summer research is underway at Nahant Marsh. Nahant Marsh is in the Davenport Metro. It reads, 8 interns from 6 different colleges and universities are currently studying the local flora and fauna at Nahant Marsh. Projects this year include investigations of purple martins, blandings, turtles, rusty patched bumblebees, snakes, bats, fungi, and our oak savanna restoration. Join us for a poster presentation to learn about their summer research findings. The effort, the undertaking will be brought to a presentation on August 7th from 5 to 7 p.m. And it comes by way of the Lewis Stokes Alliances for Minority Participation program. It's an alliance-based program that supports university alliances and post-baccalaureate fellowship programs focused on increasing the number of STEM bachelor's and graduate degrees awarded to populations historically underrepresented in STEM fields. This is an example of something that is occurring in the greater community. It doesn't necessarily require any of us to do the heavy lifting and start from square one as to a presentation, but it's acknowledging, and this actually comes from Thomas Mason IV, who is part of the Martin de Porres Society at the Cathedral. and wanting to support undergraduate students in their STEM research, to give us some sense as to what type of research they did there at the Marsh this summer. The folks that are doing the work connected with environmental justice and care for creation, there are many in our communities, and to be aware of them and to promote those efforts are important as well. I'm going to pause now. It is 12:30, and I want to field questions, and I will ask for comments or questions at this time.
Just an FYI, Loxie is at St. Anthony's with the group gathering with 5 people listening. And
Excellent. It's one of the, I love when a parish is willing to listen together. So hello, St. Anthony's, hello, Loxie, and the good folks there.
Speakers in the video you introduced at the beginning spoke about the restoration needs of other peoples in other nations, people who in many cases we have helped ourselves to their natural resources to sustain our standard of living. One of the problems that we're going to face is that our own standard of living is at risk. There is going to be suffering as climate change takes effect. For another project, I was just looking at such things as, well, let's say, do you like hamburger or steak? Don't expect it to get cheap anytime soon, because the size of the beef herd nationally is at an not quite an all-time low, but it's getting there. It's the lowest it's been in 6 years, and that's because there's no grazing land. So why don't we feed them hay? Well, I was looking at that. Hay in 2020 was $200 a ton. In 22, it was $281. Today, a bale, and bales depend on what they're made out of, whether it's alfalfa or grass or what have you, can go up to $400 a bale. So our own standard of living is going to change, and we're going to have to talk about suffering. It's not just the people who have been damaged by storms, but we are all going to suffer.
Your reference to the price that is to be paid is a helpful reminder to me, Glenn. There's one element of the season of creation that I wanted to highlight for purposes of discussions here in the diocese, and that relates to our relationship with Catholic Relief Services. U.S. bishops' outreach presence in over 100 countries, they see directly the impact that arid, once fertile lands now becoming arid, have to local people, no longer able to provide for their family by the crops that they have put in the field. CRS can give us the real-time updates as to the extent to which the world's poorest are experiencing great hardship. The other thing I will add about CRS, and it's one of those post-it notes that needs to be on my forehead as we talk about the season of creation, is that we remain hope-filled as people of faith in order to know what is really within our means to be able to accomplish. And so some of the farming practices that CRS helps folks in third world countries undertake, including the use of cover crops and buffer zones, enables them to take care of the land that they live on, in order to sustain themselves and to lessen their need to move in order to feed their families.
And we've got a question here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Question, Mary.
I have a couple questions. What is our action plan as of right now? Can I find that on the website? And what strides have we made that you spoke about? Can I find that?
Yes. So there's kind of a few parts to the action plan. And one of as far as the Chancery operations goes, we have a commitment to work towards net zero by 2050. That is about the most specific element of the Diocesan Laudato Si plan. That does not include requiring 80 different parishes to do likewise. Ultimately, what we wanted to be able to do is to demonstrate what that commitment would look like, to be able to share notes with parishes who would be prepared to do so likewise. That is like the most specific actual behavior change that is true to that action plan. But the other part of the action plan continues to be a matter of being intentional about praying and learning, and also looking at moments where we are called to do, we're to act, we're to live simply, more deliberately, and also to engage with elected officials when there are moments when we can do right by creation, improving right relationships by the way that that we function as a country. So that's kind of the short answer. Yes, you will be able to see, if you go to the website, you'll be able to read about the elements of our action plan. And besides giving you mid-project goals, we really do need to summarize what we've undertaken in year one of our work on this plan.
So you're saying that the action plan to get net zero by 2050 only is the Chancery, not the 80 churches?
You are correct. You are
Why?
correct. Right.
Why? That's a small.
It is indeed a small, though not an insignificant move. The challenge becomes, what we're intending to do is model what it looks like and encouraging families, religious orders, higher ed institutions to see what is possible for them, and to also appreciate the sense of subsidiarity that's necessary to do this well. If it were merely a decree from on high and a mandate to do so, to what extent would we have people creatively, courageously undertaking it? And so ultimately it was a matter of making sure that people owned committing to and then working on it. And the other thing, if I can for just a moment, let me add that of the 180 dioceses in the United States, there remains but about 10 who have done any type of commitment. So to give you an idea of how much more work needs to be done in the one sector, that being dioceses, there is an enormous amount of work that needs to happen. I am ever so grateful for the two religious orders within the diocese, our neighbors immediately next door, the Congregation of Humility of Mary, the Clinton Franciscans, who have either already have a plan in place or are close to having one. We gain energy from their commitment to and share ideas inspired by their commitment. But we've also got high schools, and we have a university who within their sector as a Catholic institution need to give prayerful consideration as to what it would mean to enroll and in turn have a plan. And you do so, you're making a pretty significant commitment. And so that's why it was not imposed from on high, we're attempting to model what it would mean. I saw Glenn's hand up.
Yeah, that the fact that our plan reflects what we are doing at the Chancery does not mean that there is not any work being done elsewhere.
Right.
One of our high schools has a solar array. My own parish has both geothermal heating and a solar array. Other parishes are doing similar work. Our problem is that we haven't yet been able to collect together all of the information to know who is doing what. It's kind of a massive job to pull that together. And Kent has a staff of one to kind of do it. He's it.
Kent,
Yes.
we might also point out that many of the churches we know are starting baby steps. Here at St. Anthony's, we have gone away from the use of styrofoam. I know at St. John Vianney that they put in a water station for people to be able to fill their thermoses rather than use plastic. There's a number of churches that are doing some really amazing things.
Yes, those that are already LEED certified, if they are a newer facility, those that are looking at the possibility of either renovation or new builds. But part of the value in taking on an action plan for energy consumption in a building that's over 100 years old is to begin to think about what it means to go from a boiler system and HVAC in the wings to begin to talk about the nuts and bolts, the detail of ductwork that would allow us to then move towards advanced technology heat pumps, essentially geothermal, but the newer generations of it. The other part of it is when we started, we had the bishop's office approval and it was social action. It now includes the director of development and physical plant operations and the CFO trying to help us so that we can utilize the expertise on looking at what grants are available, who do we know locally that can help us with these types of projects, who knows about, developing the wells necessary for ground source heat pumps, et cetera. So you got to figure out where you are locally in order to know what your starting point is, to compare two different parishes, one with a brand new building and one that's 120 years old. That would be, you got to start where you are. But the other part of it is when we talk about dollars and cents, I do want to recall what the first 5-minute presentation was. The woman who spoke about those who are of greater means doing what's within their means, and the calculus is about the variable is caring. And to Glenn's comment, what type of effort is it going to hurt a little bit to do this? Because if we're merely just going to glide, we're not going to have the means of doing the courageous steps to live differently and in better relationship.
And just as a practical note, as religious institutions, churches, parishes are not able to take direct advantage of rebates from government funding, such as the IRA. It takes a great deal of ingenuity to fund a solar array if you're a church.
The level of creativity that has been shown by people who have been able to navigate barriers is remarkable, and we need to have those types of conversations as to how we might go about it. The other piece, if you watch the video describing what we've undertaken in this year, there is another piece to us achieving net zero, And it has to do with a utility company that continues to use 2 coal-fired plants, and until they retire those and take them off of use, we will not be able to achieve net zero. And so,
and that's the reasoning for that is because the electricity we use is in part derived from the burning of fossil fuels.
Right.
So that counts against our carbon load.
right, right.
Thank you.
We've done well. It appears as though we've answered questions and queried, taken the comments and done it in a relatively short period of time. For every individual that's on this call, any connection you have with your religious order or your parish or your small Christian community, keep in mind what we're hoping to do. Part of our metrics, if you will, and looking how well we're doing with our plan is the extent to which we've engaged people and they've in turn shared with us. We've got some incredibly passionate and talented people across 22 counties, and we want to hear from them, and we want to highlight the types of efforts that they're undertaking. And individuals and families are considered one of the 7 sectors on this. So it is possible for a individual or a family to enroll in an action plan and take steps in order for them to do comparably what we would be doing as an institution.
Did any Catholic coalition go and speak with our legislators about the farm bill, making it more sustainable farm bill?
Yes.
There was actually there have been a number of people who have made legislative visits, and the farm bill was a topic. There was a gathering of the Catholic Relief Services in Washington, D.C. last month. There were 3 representatives from the state of Iowa. It was myself and 2 University of Iowa Newman Center students. And though it wasn't related directly to Care for Creation, the reason that we made legislative visits to the offices of both senators and our representative as it related to the farm bill is in order that the farm bill would continue to include the opportunity to do innovative projects locally, in order that global farmers in third world countries continue to have the projects that enable them to work towards greater self-sufficiency and sustainability. There is a bill in Congress that would exclude those types of money and would have us revert back to the 1950s as far as foodstuffs from the United States. Merely the phrase is truck and dump. Is that not right, Glenn? Is that the phrase?
Ship and dump.
What is it?
Ship and dump.
Ship and dump.
Ship our surplus and dump it in the other countries.
There needs to be a balance. There needs to be both the foodstuffs that have been produced in the United States, along with the ability to have special projects aimed at helping farmers move towards sustainability and maintain, to develop so that their products and produce actually can make it to market in their country. And so there needs to be that type of balance. I think that that type of approach has worked well in the Farm Bill's past. But
folks from the Climate Covenant to even the U.S. bishops have written to Congress and or appeared there on behalf of the Farm Bill.
To your point, to the person's point that asked the question, Glenn, may you help me find an example of where the U.S. bishops had encouraged us to take legislative action specific to Care for Creation with a particular bill that might have been beneficial for the environment, aside, not necessarily connected with the Farm Bill. as an example. So I just put Glenn on task for an assignment. But in our 14 years of working together, there have been moments where we have seen particular pieces of legislation that the U.S. bishops are asking us to do in order to account for better care of the created world and the environment. Seeing no other comments, I want to thank you all for attending. I want to thank those that watch this recording later on. The extent to which we know the reach of this will be how many updates we get from people to say, oh, and by the way, we want our event to be on the diocesan calendar of events. Yeah, so I'm ever so grateful. As a Franciscan, I'm looking forward to the season of creation, October 4th being the feast day of St. Francis. In my presentation to the Creighton audience, I gave a confession. The Canticle of the Creatures, I heard, my ears heard, praise be you, my Lord, for brother, sun, sister, moon. And it's not for, it's through. It is praise be my Lord through sister water and Mother Earth. It is a means of worshiping. Caring for creation is directly connected with my means of giving praise to our Lord. And that is why I can continue to be as passionate about this as I am. I see Sarah, our colleague, with hand raised. Sarah, what say you?
Oh, so I just saw a comment in the chat about reaching parishes, families, individuals on opportunities for action or ways to celebrate the season of creation. And for those of you that don't know me, I do the social media at the diocese, and sharing on social media. We'll be posting content throughout the season of creation. This Saturday, I believe, or soon around there, we're posting just like 3 different ways to celebrate the season of creation. So you can share that on your personal social media pages as well as parish pages. And then if there's a want or a need for it, we can also make bulletin inserts, I'm sure, and share those with parishes. So social media is a great way to extend your reach exponentially. So
The having a Sarah on board, we didn't know when we first bantered about the possibility of a Laudato Si action plan, but having Sarah on board and also having a director of evangelization has been invaluable to us working on 3 projects simultaneously. And I have benefited greatly by having colleagues who are as supportive of this particular project, and I try to do so likewise.
And
yes,
if you just type in USCCB on the Farm Bill, it brings up what their priorities are, letters that you can write to Congress, and a number of different things.
And I have put in the chat box links to information about the bishop's actions with Congress on climate change directly.
When you go to give thanks to Bishop Zinkula for his time here, please thank him for his prophetic wisdom to undertake this particular courageous action and model it for brother bishops and other people to do so likewise.
I have a feeling he will take it with him to the Duke.
And then we're talking momentum. And then we've got some stuff going on. This will be good. 12:55, I'm going to close now. I thank you for your attendance, your contributions. We continue to do so while praying and learning and acting. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.